in the morning, what would I see? The answer is absolutely nothing. Did that only happen to me? I'd look out of my window and the sky would be completely white. Whenever it was, I felt my day would be a waste. Why is it all that I can remember from back then? Every day used to be the same. I'd get up and then came school, where a lot of time was wasted. I knew it back then, but I had nothing better to do. I longed every day for something to bring change. Eventually I found that something was changing. Don't ask me how, because it's hard to explain. I started feeling heat and emotion, and there was sometimes something for me to do. But now that's all regressing, back to where I started. White sky all day, don't know if it's gonna last. White sky all day, I get my mind out of the past. I don't even know why I'm going back to this time when there was nothing to do. I hope this never happens again, because no one wants it to. In the time before you start your career, you might not think of anything as a waste of time. You just keep living on, completely unaware of the people out there who've never known what peace might be. At some point you realize there's terrible things going on, but afterwards you feel like you're unable to help. I'm here to tell you right now, there's nothing stopping you. Random pieces of paper and sounds don't stop you from doing anything. White sky all day, don't know if it's gonna last. White sky all day, I get my mind out of the past. I don't even know why I'm going back to this time when there was nothing to do. I hope this never happens again, because no one wants it to. I see a white sky, where the hell is the sun? It's like this all day, and when it is I can't have fun. I don't know how the colour of the sky should affect anything. If it isn't raining, the plants will die, but it happens all the time. And no, Stockios will not fix it. White sky, we're not going to die. Why can't you at least let us try to live on? Why are you making everyone stay inside for a year and ruining their lives if they try to live at all? White sky all day, I'm unable to move on. White sky all day, before the sunlight's gone. If there's anything that represents depression to any of you, there are people who could help far better than I could ever do. Today's the day that I finally had enough of people like that lot who think their life's so bloody tough. It's about time we all started working towards making every other life worth living.